Hello everybody, I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes. Welcome to Gwen's Bookish Ramblings, and okay, so Wickedly Wonderful is the second book out of the Deborah Blake Baba Yaga series, and there is a trilogy of them because there are 3 Baba Yagas on the continental United States. It is not discussed how many other ones there are in the world. I presume that the 3 in the US know each other because they're sort of, in the same country, and they don't really know the ones from other countries just because, they're busy. Anyways, so, this sequel, it kind of picks up where the last one left off, in that the end of the last book kind of rolls into this one with, sort of a final scene indicating that Beka is having trouble where she is. Anyway, so she has that her hut that used to have chicken legs is actually a bus, and she has a sort of a very hippie aesthetic, mainly because the Baba Yaga that raised her had a hippie Earth Mother aesthetic. And, the story of this one, there's a selkie prince who his father tells him that, you'll be a terrible king, so even though you're the eldest son, I'm giving the kingship to the younger one because he's not a jerk. And the, eldest son who has just been booted out, kicks up a stink and huffs off and decides that if he can't be king, then he's going to destroy everything because he's one of those people. And at the end of the book, you have this thing where he's like, you took away my birthright, and the king's like, dude, the fact that when I took away your birthright, your first thought was to poison everybody in, every single selkie and all of the merpeople too, because I wouldn't let you be king, suggests that maybe you wouldn't be a good king, because that seems like a really bad idea. So I was probably right. Anyways, so he's doing the thing, but the most interesting aspect of this book, and in a way this trilogy, it really does build, in that the first one stands alone in its way more than the other two, because the first one really, really is just establishing things. But this one and the third one, which, I'll get to the third one when I get to it, but they're kind of the same story. That the third one, the story of this one bleeds directly into the third one, and it bleeds very directly because of, and, I'll talk about it when we get to the third one, but because of Beka, the Baba Yaga of this story, and the one that trained her, Brenna, that her teacher, because Brenna may have been sort of like a guardian, but she wasn't actually a parent. And the closest thing I can think of, sort of the immediate gut reaction as far as Brenna goes, is actually Mother Gothel. That Brenna is a really, really terrible person, and one of the first things that becomes almost immediately apparent is she has shattered Beka's self-confidence over the years. That basically, she kept Beka on a leash, said, you aren't ready to be the next Baba Yaga for longer than any of the others, and she kept saying, you're not ready. Oh, I'm sure someday, dear, you'll be able to handle it. And Beka spends the entire book feeling like a failure, feeling like, well, Brenna would have already solved this difficult problem that I can't figure out. I haven't solved this in 2 days. I'm not good enough. That she's got this problem of, she was told in that very passive-aggressive, like I said, you think of Mother Gothel and how she talks to, and how she talks to Rapunzel, that whole, I see a strong, confident woman, and you're here also. Oh, I'm just kidding. I love you, dear. the thing is, Brenna never does the "I'm just kidding, I love you, dear" thing, but she does do the "I see a strong, confident woman, oh yes, you're also here" thing. She, in fact, shows up in this book, and it turns out in the course of this book was working with the bad guy, with our main antagonist. Not that Beka ever knows this, but Brenna is working with the main antagonist in this and shows up specifically for the purpose of shattering Beka's sense of self and self-confidence. And it's just this ongoing theme throughout the book. She considers, because when she turns 30, that's when there's no turning back, and the change that keeps her from becoming human again, or fully human properly, that's when sort of that takes that on her 30th birthday, that she has to make that choice by her 30th birthday, because that's the cutoff point. And I mean, that's entirely fair in terms of giving people a choice, because let's be honest, having the chance to wait until you're 30 to decide whether or not you want to, you know, not be able to have a normal life and all that kind of thing, it's really, that's actually pretty good. But, this isn't one of those things. This isn't one of those life decisions where it's like, if you haven't chosen to do this by the time you're 10, then it's all over. This is if by the time you're 30. So, anyways, but Beka spends the whole book agonizing over not being good enough. She spends the whole book deciding, trying to figure out whether she should maybe quit this. And some of it is absolutely her being concerned that, she might not be able to do the job well, and thinking that maybe she should, and thinking that maybe she should just hand things over to somebody else who's better. But the thing is that Brenna is basically trying to worm her way back into the role of Baba Yaga, because according to this book, she was forcibly retired because she was causing problems. And so Beka's lack of self-confidence becomes sort of even more stringently, determinedly problematic, becomes more concerning the more you realize that there's something genuinely wrong about Brenna, that there's something genuinely problematic. And as always, I have, not actually made any, notes or things, but here it is. So Brenna shows up, and and the first thing that she says, and like the first thing that she does, is tell Beka that that she knows she's not doing well. You get that first thing: stand up straight, dear, and yes, thank you, something herbal, please. Oh, Chewy, you always did love to tease me. I've missed you. You too, of course, sweetie. I'm checking in on Beka. I would have thought that was obvious. I heard she was having some difficulty dealing with her first big task. I thought I'd just pop in to see if there was anything I could do to help, offer support and encouragement. That kind of thing. And, when Beka asks, who told you I was having problems? Oh, sweetie, everybody knows. Paranormal community here, people back at the Queen's Court. It's not exactly a secret now, is it? You mustn't feel bad. Everyone knows you're trying your best. Nobody blames you for failing. You're just in over your head. And there's still time for me to find the answers. Of course there is, sweetie. After all, the water people don't reach their weakest point until the night of the full moon, when the tides pull hardest against their magic. That's probably when most of the really sick ones will start to die, and you still got days until then. Like, Brenna goes on, actively trying, you know, that whether or not to continue. If you left the position open, the Queen would have no choice but to let me come back and take up my mantle again. I'm sure I could find a solution in no time if I was allowed to do so. That Brenna is like that, and she's sort of, you have a romance, you have a grouchy dying father with cancer in this, you have, another dragon masquerading as a giant dog. You have all of these things, and yet Brenna looms very, very large in this book just by her ongoing impact on Beka. The fact that every other scene, Beka is thinking about how she's not ready and not capable and not up for it. And it's sort of the central theme of this book on and on and endlessly. And everybody keeps telling Beka that Brenna was bad for her, that Brenna is a problem, that there's nothing wrong with her. But Beka has just been so deeply inculcated in this notion that there is something wrong with her, that she's not good enough, that she hasn't made it, that it just bleeds into everything she does and everything she says and everything she thinks. And it takes this whole book for her to sort of pull herself through to, acknowledge that she did well, that she solved the problem, that she is good enough. And, it's one of those things where if we had another book about her, which, we're not really going to get, but if we did, it's a problem that I'm pretty sure would have come back. Because people who have been raised to think that they're not good enough and will never be good enough aren't going to stop thinking that. And it's sort of just the deadly, center point of this book, this complete lack of self-confidence in somebody who otherwise is deeply, deeply self-confident in almost everything except this one thing. But this one thing is sort of the central facet of who she is. Her calling in life is the one thing that she is not self-confident in, and it's a really, really, it's something that just permeates this whole book in a way that this theme that runs through it in a way that the last one really didn't have nearly as much of that theme in it as anything else. Anyway, so that's enough of my armchair, quarterbacking psychology, because I know nothing about psychology. And yeah, I think that's basically everything that I'm going to say, because everything else is just plot points. So yeah, that's everything, and I will see you all next week.